it would seem obvious that economics, given that the government's one of their mandates is economic stability, that economics should inform policy. But this isn't always the case. I did my undergrad mostly in economics, but I'm doing a master's in finance at SFU right now. And so really my passion comes from understanding the world and how its components work together and how we can make it a better place. So I am speaking from more of an academic perspective, I suppose. But both economics and finance are driving forces behind this. And so I guess you could say like economics allows us to understand individual behavior and model that behavior so we can see if we make a policy change, how will individuals act. And it would seem obvious that economics, given that the government's one of their mandates is economic stability, that economics should inform policy. But this isn't always the case. It can be a hard sell politically. Economists can be viewed as a bit of elitists, and basically the mechanisms behind it, they're not always accessible or understandable to the general public. So I really think going forward we need to look at how we can make this information more accessible and more understandable for people. And I'm just going to go through a couple well-known examples really. So rent control is one. I'm relatively new to Vancouver and still understanding how it works here, but housing is obviously an issue in Vancouver, and I've heard the term rent control thrown around. And it's a very attractive policy politically, and you can see how people would like it. In the short term, it keeps people in place, and it should slow down gentrification. But the economics tell us that it can often do quite the opposite. And a good example of this was rent control in San Francisco in the 90s. So it did have the effect of keeping some people in place, but it was only one specific demographic. So that drives inequality. And then you also have the problem of potential landlords don't want to get into the market anymore. Landlords want to drive tenant turnover because they want to put their rents up. And then you just have a reduction in development of rental properties as well. So this creates a shortage and ultimately drives up rents, and it did. And you could say it also speeds up gentrification as well. So this is just an example. If you looked at the economics behind the policy, you would have seen that there would have been a better solution. Another one in our most recent federal election is climate change. So this is important to me, important to a lot of people. There's a lot of policies that get thrown around and how to deal with it. But the problem is the vast majority of these do not look at the long-term effect of what happens once people adjust their behaviors for the implementation of this policy. And economics look at this, and it shows that the carbon tax really is the cheapest and most effective way to deal with climate change. And it addresses the widest array of sources, and then also it's the most stable and predictable. It allows people to plan, and it allows them to adjust their behaviors, as well as businesses. So it's less of a deterrent for businesses from that way because they can plan for it. Another one that's been thrown around is just driving innovation and upgrades to buildings and that sort of thing. But to implement that on a wide enough scale to be effective is more challenging, and also the carbon tax incentivizes that anyways. One of the concerns around carbon tax, though, obviously, is the cost of living, and this is obviously a very valid concern. And I think one of the ways to deal with that is to better manage the rebate program. We shouldn't be unfairly disadvantaging low-income individuals and people in rural communities that are living on low incomes, and that needs to be addressed. So another thing that I'm working on, so I'm finishing up my master's right now, and I'm going to be starting on an internship between SFU and the Vancouver Economic Commission to build an affordability dashboard. So that's for the city, and basically this is, the idea is that businesses getting started in the city should have access to all of the economic metrics and information to know how much it's going to cost to run that business and what they should be paying their employees based on the cost of living. And these things are a lot less accessible than you would think they should be. So the idea is we're going to bring all of these metrics, the statistics, the trends, and benchmark them against comparable cities and have it all in one place so that businesses can plan better and be more prosperous in this city. Additionally, it'll be accessible for policymakers so that they can see how the city is measuring up against other cities and where the trends are, so that we can make it just a more attractive city for businesses and talent to come to. So this is just like one way in which we can make economics more understandable and more accessible to the public, but I'm looking forward to seeing other initiatives in the future to try and do that as well.